What's up, beauties? My name is Brooke. Welcome back to FrostTec Productions. Once again, not another VOD, just a little creation type video. But today it's going to be who the hell am I trying to kid? It is going to be MegaMan Battle Network inspired, particularly Scarlet Battle Network. If you're unaware of the lore of my characters or their universes, Scarlet Battle Network is an offshoot of MegaMan Battle Network, specifically its anime. The inciting incident takes place during NT Warrior Axess's last episode. You know, the one where Lan Hikari and MegaMan fight Dr. Regal and supposedly kill him. But the inciting incident for Scarlet Battle Network takes place during that episode. And to make a very long story short, my persona, who you see talking here on the screen, worked with Nebula. And had to use a dark synchro chip in order to save lives on that night. Or else, way more people were going to die in NT City. There are a number of commissions that you can find over on my personal Blue Sky, which is at brookiedj.bsky.social. But we're going to continue on with the continuation of the 4 coma that I had commissioned last month from Lady Pixelheart. So yes, let's get into it. Alrighty, so there's Photoshop. If you're wondering, I do tend to draw on my phone, which is currently a Galaxy S24 Ultra. I've had what are effectively just Galaxy Note phones since 2020. My first Galaxy Note style phone was actually the Galaxy Note 10. I actually do still have that phone, but I've since given it to my mom because she needed a phone, and then she fucking broke it. But in the same vein, for Scarlet Battle Network and anything that I derive from MegaMan Battle Network, it is the PETs, the personal terminals, aren't Windows devices, they are Android devices. Although very early on, in the early aughts to early 2010s, so from basically, well, let's just say from like the 90s to the 2010s, the personal terminals were initially based on x86 versions of Windows. Specifically, Windows NT. Because why would you want to use DOS on a portable device if it wasn't a laptop? In any case, when the plug-in PET came around, the PET that you find in Battle Network 3 and in these first 2 arcs of the anime, that would have run Windows Compact Embedded. Do I know the exact version of the operating system for that point? No. In the Compact Embedded series of terminals would have lasted all the way through past the Link. The Link PETs would have soon been superseded by some kind of touch-based PET that would have been the last of the Windows Phone series PETs, before in 2013 switching to Android development and ARM. Although I suppose it probably would have been ARM back starting as early as the Advanced. I don't know, it's a bunch of logic, but for all intents and purposes, we are going to pretend that MegaMan, NT Warrior, and Rockman.EXE's anime did not take place in the aughts, but instead the 2010s. Now, in order for continuity's sake, I do tend to place these commissions within the time frame of Battle Network, but when I am actually writing or drawing myself, I tend to not use the concepts of the PETs as they were in Battle Network. I instead use a more smartphone-based derivative, such as the Galaxy series. Yet I do think that IPC or BlazeQuest, whichever name you prefer to use, would have contracted with Google and Samsung to produce devices. If that makes sense, then hooray. If it doesn't, then oh well. But considering BlazeQuest does create their own devices, as is stated in canon, I do think that they would have purchased a reference from Samsung and Google for the PETs that were Android-based. Because I can't see them working with Apple for varying reasons, such as Apple's nature to kind of close themselves off. Like, never minding the experiments to license out macOS in the 90s. Obviously, Apple wouldn't do that today. They certainly would not license out iOS. Like, 100% they would not bother doing that. Although I could see IPC making the Navigator app available for macOS when they moved over to Android. And you're gonna hear me just interchange the names a lot. So IPC is BlazeQuest, BlazeQuest is IPC. If you pay attention to the drawing, you'll notice that I sketch messy, and it's just that's always how I've sketched. In fact, I'm actually doing something different, because I usually, like, yes, this is still a front-facing profile, but it is also different to how I've done my sketches in the past. I usually have arms straight down at the sides. This is different because I want to show off Crossfusion Scarlet's sword, which is corrupted already, thanks to the Dark Synchro chip. I can imagine that even if they're trying to resist the power, they eventually can't resist it. This might be in two parts when it gets to the computer. But that's fine, because I can stitch them together in Photoshop. That is too thin for my persona's body. There we go, that's a little better. And don't worry, there will be references for Scarlet.EXE showing up on the screen here. I probably won't do a full body. This is more just for reference for anything else, because I do plan on getting this commissioned as well in order to complete the 4-coma. Because what I wanted was a manga-style page with some color, like Brooke's hair color, Scarlet's hair color, and both their eye colors, as well as the Dark Synchro chip. It's definitely not right, but that's fine. I can fix that later. Yeah, that's the nice thing about the Samsung Notes app, by the way, is if you just hold your pen for like a few seconds, it'll actually straighten those out. What the fuck are you doing? There we go. Looks like my wife sent me a very quick text. Oh, let's see what she sent. Ah, she just wants attention. Alright, give me 2 seconds here. Let's try getting your cut. Excuse me. But Scarlet doesn't have the traditional helmet style that most navigators do. She has what I would call a visor. And we have to start using different colors to differentiate. So we're going to use blue for the hair color. And obviously in Crossfusion, the net op will take some qualities from the net navi. So in the case of Brooke and Scarlet's V1 Crossfusion, Brooke takes on Scarlet's hair color for the ponytail and only the ponytail. Otherwise, it is just one-to-one Scarlet.EXE. I've never drawn hair particularly well, but I can imagine just due to the amount of stress the pair are under, that it is a lot more frazzled. I don't like the way that's looking. Fuck. There we go. Because like Photoshop, Samsung Notes only has so many undo states, so sometimes you just gotta work with what you got. I actually quite like the way Lady Pixelheart did Ricky's hair a couple of years ago. Make sure we give that a bit of a curve instead. I might just have to do what I usually do for hair. Which is this, but we'll keep it more out of the way, so we're not obscuring the hair too much. And in this case, it's actually a top ponytail instead of a bottom ponytail. And you're gonna see some, I don't know, probably a little bit of fuckery at least, when it comes to getting things done up and drawn and yada yada yada. I never claimed I was a particularly good artist. I think my last stream kind of highlights that very well. My last video in the FrostTec Creates playlist, which should have been the Edmonton Transit Service bus marquees in the style of the TTC. Here, Brooke and Scarlet are relatively confident in their ability to get these people out of this living nightmare that Dr. Regal has created. And that confidence slowly erodes as they start to feel the effects of the Dark Tip more and more as they start to air out the BET, which Brooke can see in her visor. And wouldn't you know it, eventually she has to use the Dark Chip to power up. what you're seeing on the phone is not final, obviously, but this is how it's going to be for now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to export this over to the computer so I can pick it up there. Alright, that is the phone shenaniganery done. At least in terms of actually drawing on the damn thing. We are still going to use this, because I use a program that's called Super Display, which allows me to turn my phone into a drawing tablet. God, do I ever love the S Pen. Open. Okay, we are on the desktop. I got lucky there. Holy shit. There we go. There she is. I suppose that was definitely more for my my other video, so I'm gonna have to quickly adjust Photoshop. Display resolution is this laptop panel's native resolution at 1920 by 1200. So it's a 16 by 10 display, not a 16 by 9 display. Alright, back to Photoshop. Perfect. Alright, bring that into full view. Super Display wants a USB cable. That's not a problem. I can supply one of them. Give me 2 seconds here. Quickly duplicate the displays. Oh, that actually just fucking go 1080. I bet you it did. No, it's still 1200. It got really confused. Okay. Alright, so here is Crossfusion Scarlet. Just because it's easy to use the mouse instead of my trackpad at this moment in time. Pictures, characters, references. Well, can't show that on a PG-13 YouTube video. That's fine. What is this pixel? What the fuck is going on here? This is the 2024, this is the 2024. I need the 2025. Here she is. Why do you still look pixelated? What the fuck's going on here? It's just Photoshop being Photoshop. Okay, got it. Hi, Scarlet. Oh, yeah. There we go. There you go. Now you can see Scarlet.EXE. So originally, and here's a little bit of backstory. Here's a little bit of lore for you, personal lore. This was originally a commission by Kare Rakugaki, as you can see right down here. And I had colored it in because Scarlet at that point did not have a ref. Technically, she still doesn't. I might actually commission LPH to make a proper ref. Regardless, this is Scarlet.EXE. She be buff. Notice how I also color things. I tend to differentiate the outline, unless it is an inner piece. So the guards are going to be colored. They're going to have an outline. The body's going to have an outline. Skin's going to have an outline. Eyes are probably also going to have an outline. I'm not too sure about that yet. And obviously the hair is going to have an outline. I can't draw lineless. Never have been able to. So, first thing is first. Create a new layer. We're actually going to start with and if that wasn't obvious, I literally just used my stylus for that. Color, or at least lining for now. My anatomy's not good. And I am aware of that. Bottom, so I should just go straight down. That's gonna look a little wonky. Something I'll fix later. I also never drew the other hand. So I did technically fuck up the visor. So we're gonna do a real quick correction on that. That sword actually does need to move down. Oh, what the fuck? The shade of white that Samsung Note uses is very different to the shade of white. You might be wondering what this layer 2 is for. This is literally just so I can move the sword down. So let's actually do that now while I'm thinking about it. Because right about here is her hip, and that's where Brooke's fingers will usually lie. And the swords never come up to the elbow. They're almost always bound to the wrist. So I am very much incorrect in my placements. That hand sucks. And so does my drawing skill. I have no rights to complain, honestly. Now here's a fun little tip I like to do. I can knock those down to a darker value, and here I am. Never said I was a good artist. If I ever gave you that impression, I am sorry. Actually, that does need to be purple, not red. The sword is already corrupted, so that actually can't be any shade of red. That needs to be all different sorts of purple, and I'll probably be pulling up an anime screenshot for that. That's not how you use a sword. That's so tiny! It's fine, though. Now in this case, I want the actual coloring of the Dark Sword, not Dark Proto-Man's sword. That is... okay, it is actually fucking red in official artwork. I'm going to reject that reality and replace it with my own. The Dark Sword is purple. I don't make the rules, the Dark Sword is purple. Now, for the eyes, I don't actually hand draw those. I tend to use the tools I have available to me in Photoshop. And then I will rasterize them when I'm done. So now, in this case, I need to zoom in. I'm not going to erase the eyes until I have everything else in place. Now here's a fun fact. In order for Photoshop to consider this closed, it just needs to have that. You can't see it unless I take off this. Oh, that's not actually closed at all. This is going to be our first fill, and it unfortunately has to be that way. And then I set the opacity of this layer to 25%. Alright, now we get to see how I do my Navi mark. That's not going to be hard at all. Once again, it is the ellipse tool with a fill of black, but our stroke is this particular shade of yellow right here. There we go, Navi mark. Pardon me, big stretch. At this point, it's now just coloring. Oh, hi. Ha! I didn't realize I was streaming. I must have hit a hotkey or something. But hello, hi. I'm gonna delete the VOD from Twitch. Oh god, I am deleting that VOD from Twitch for sure. Alright, but thank you for tuning in, I guess. I didn't realize I was streaming. Have a good night, evening, afternoon, or morning, wherever you are.